Maybe you can move it a little bit, because otherwise, actually, good morning. Welcome to Jin Shin Institute. So I guess we're going to talk this way. So I think would be really nice for this group to be a little bit more interactive, and a lot of people join online from many different countries. And so please come with comments and questions and statements and experiences. In that way, it will not just be a lecture, because Jules and I mean, we really are still studying also, right? And we don't know. I mean, this is we are, sharing some of what we learned over how many years in total of experience?
Too many.
I was just saying, I've been working with Jules since she was a teenager, and I was in my early 20s, and so we have many years together, and I would like to hear from you, because it is so interesting to see how this art evolves in your study and practice, how it evolves, how your understanding evolves. And that is the beauty of Jin Shin, and that we keep growing in it, and that's where the art comes in. So please share. We're still talking about the depths today. Jules will discuss the order of creation, and I thought I'll give an overview of what we've covered so far, because the depth is always still a big topic, and what is it, and how does it work. So I just want to talk about the events that we have here first. So on Sunday, for Mother's Day, I'm teaching a classes here with Biljana B. Bedricek, right? Yes, and she's from Serbia. She is a world-renowned inspirational teacher, educator, and innovative speaker. And we will talk about mothers and children, so babies, teenagers. My own 2 college-age kids will be home this weekend, so maybe they'll join us. And also, if you have older parents, if you are a parent, and really any female in your life. So I think that will be it will be about nurturing and a lot of female energy this Sunday. We will give away also a book, and you can join this class by webinar. So I just have to once again tell you about my book that's coming out, because I'm so happy, and some of you have ordered it already on pre-order. And our mission at Jin Shin Institute is to open up the art to the world, because everybody who's in the community knows that it's still not known to everybody, as is Reiki, acupuncture, craniosacral, and all these other modalities, energy works, arts. And so it is our mission at Jin Shin Institute to spread the word and make it very accessible for people to understand, all ages. For example, again, my college-age kids, they often call me and, Mom, what do you do for this or this? And it's like, for a friend. Yes, it's for a friend. And they do simple holds. So on that level, or just holding a finger. For new clients who just started, right, Yvette? Mm-hmm. And she's just started to practice the main center source and holding her fingers and really enjoying it. And then for people who have been studying more, like Leslie, who has taken many classes and has joined many practice circles. So this book is really for everybody. And, we're very lucky that Simon & Schuster published it, because that gives us a chance to really put it on the map. So I'm asking our community to really help in that, because I'm doing a lot here from my end. I have my own publicist, and we're really getting out there to talk about it a lot. But also for the community to really now step up, because when you buy the book, when I sent out the newsletter, it bumped up to the bestseller list on Amazon. So that was really exciting in our field, in the health and wellness. So it really helps, and then it gets a lot more attention, and then the word is really spreading. So yeah, please join me in our mission to open this up to the world. And what else about this? I think that's it. Today we're talking about the depths. And is there any questions or comments so far? No? Okay. So the depth.
So the depths. Last time we talked about the lumbar circle, which is really looking at the depths in the relationship of the 5 seasons, right? So we have fall, winter, spring, summer, and then like late summer. And so the lumbar circle looks at that order and the relationship, how they lead into each other, they support each other. We can also think about that in terms of like elements, like, so we talked about them being like fire, water, air, earth, wood, right? And so how those elements relate to each other. So this week we're talking about the order of creation, and so that's the star that we draw in class when we talk about the order of the organ flows. So instead of it being the order of seasons, we're looking at the order of the zodiac, the 12 months, the 12 signs are the 12 months of the year, the 12 organ flows, and so that's the relationship that we're sort of investigating when we look at the order of creation. Does that make sense? Leslie's like, what are you talking about?
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So we're still working with the same 5 depths and 6 depth too, right?
I do want to go back a little bit to give an overview again of what a depth is for the new people also.
Okay.
So either before or after, just to give like a total overview, what is a depth and how do we see it on all the different levels of manifestation? So that we, So
right.
Shall I do that first? Or?
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. And then we'll go into the sections. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so a depth is a cycle of energy. It's a cycle of energy that courses, moves through the body and it goes deeper into the body from surface to core. So from actual skin surface to core, which is the deepest part of our body, and it's our skeletal system. So that's one way to look at a depth. It manifests from universal energy or space, it manifests into our body. And so where we can start to see the physical body and talk about it is the 6th depth. It's source, it's the one that connects us to our body and what becomes the body. So that's how this energy starts to cycle deeper into the body. So there's many different levels that we can look at the depth. And if people say, this or this is 2nd depth, there is a relationship to a depth, but Mary really created the depth system to give it organization. So if you see them as different baskets, you can put different attributes in the 1st depth basket and the 2nd depth basket and the 3rd depth basket, from the level of safety energy locations, and those are the areas that we work with, to the organ functions, to all the different flows in the book. So they are different levels of manifestation. So on the first cycle of energy that moves through the body, that's easy to understand. It goes through here, moves through the body. The first 4 safety energy locations, the first 4 areas that we use come into being. Those are on the level of 1st depth. So then when we talk about the organ functions, as it's dancing down, because these first cycles, they're not actual manifest in the body, you can't see them yet. So our whole text 1 from Mary's or Pamela's, you can't see the flow patterns yet. They're not, they harmonize this cycle of energy, but they are not actual flow patterns, which means that they work on a causal level. Right? Can somebody turn off their... Yes.
You were saying the flows, the SEL flows are...
Yeah. So the whole first textbook, they are not actual flow patterns yet. It is in the 2nd text that we can see the flow pattern. So if you look at it, you don't see lines going through these safety energy locations because there's not an actual flow pattern yet. So if we do a 4 flow, it will open up safety energy location number 4 by using this sequence of steps. So it's really more a sequence. Sonos?
Yeah, where is that?
I have to turn off the music. Yes, please jump in.
So does that make sense?
makes
Like
sense.
how we're starting to think about a depth of like it's like a vibration. We could think about it like a vibration. So some depths vibrate at a higher frequency and some at a lower frequency, and so they have different purposes and they interact differently because of that. But if you play them all together, then they're harmonious, right?
Yeah.
When they're in harmony.
So from the safety energy locations, as they move around the body, eventually we have our text 2, where you see the organ functions come into being, the stomach and the spleen flow, the lung and large intestine flow. So when you work on that level, it's already on a more manifest level that you help. So I personally like to go to the text 1 first, which works on a higher vibration, what she says.
Yeah.
So, see, this is where the system of depths becomes very interesting, and you get a deeper understanding, right? As you study it, it's like you start to see it. It's you have all these baskets with all these different attributes, and I do think that it is very, very helpful to understand it with the concept of the different baskets. And they all have all these different baskets, these different depths have different functions. So for example, if somebody has a project with the nervous system, I can look at the first depth to help it, because the first depth helps the nervous system. Or muscle, you can look at the fourth depth, because fourth depth helps muscle in the body. So in that way, it's a very, very well organized system.
Yeah. So if we look specifically at one basket, right? So if we create a basket and we'll label it first depth basket, right? These are some of the different things that we can put into that basket. First, we know first depth has to do with skin surface, right? It's our outside layer, and on that layer we created is safety energy location 1 through 4. They come into being when that first depth cycles through the body. So skin surface, safety energy lock 1 through 4, the color yellow. And then in terms of organ functions, we have spleen and stomach. So we have digestion.
Yeah, so you see how she's talking about safety energy locations on a less manifested level, and then stomach and spleen being the denser form of it. So we look at all of it, and that is something that takes a while to really fully understand. And so as we're moving through the texts, you see also it moves from unmanifest to denser and denser and denser and denser.
Right.
So, for example, to relieve symptoms, to work on a more manifest level could make sense, you know? Or I always use a combination of different flows and different levels of manifestation to get all of it. Because people do, when they come, they want to get rid of their symptoms. Like, oh, I have pain in my shoulder, you know, you better get some movement there. Or they're like, well, it doesn't work, you know?
Right.
Right? So I do use both. I work some on the symptoms, and you know, in the end, we always. Hi, Lisa.
Oh.
You're like hiding.
No, I
Okay.
will have a question after you.
Okay, please.
Oh.
Maybe we can move this back.
The depth is really very new to me, and I'm still really quite confused. But I think what both of you are explaining is a little bit clear. So my question is, if the practitioner decides to use the first step, does that mean then you have to use the safety energy location 1 to 4 plus stomach and spleen function, the organ function flow?
Yeah.
In order to complete this depth, right? Or it's...
Well, not necessarily. You can do one of... you can choose one of them, and see if it clears. And so that's part of the overview I wanted to do, but I guess I can go off. But when we look at the body, Teresa, you want to lie down? Can we have a body? Somebody wants to be the demo? I mean, to make it more practical, it's like there's so many different ways we can look at it, right? So one way to look at it is to listen to the pulse. Here we feel many different things, and one of the things that we feel on the fingers, on the wrist, is which depth is talking. So that's one way to look at it. My teacher Philomena, she always says, put a project into a depth. Okay, and that's putting the whole picture together. So I listen to her pulse and I feel one depth primarily, which right now on her I feel some waistline, so that's liver and spleen energy. And then I also will look at her body. So Jules will talk about the order of creation today, how we see that in the body, seeing what's going on. So if this is a little bit full here, that talks to me about the fourth depth, what you will talk about later. Another way to look at it is to look at the energy pathways. So, for example, if this is rolling, you can come around. If this is rolling in a little bit, I'm looking, probably there's some tightness here in the toe flows, the liver, kidney, and spleen flows that move up through here and then move up through the inside of the leg. Because if I hold this, it will start to, open up and change. Or looking at so that tells you about the depths, right, of the organ functions. If you look about the arm, if you look at the arms here and you feel there's some tightness here, so that's the lung pathway here. We can look at that. So looking at all of that, you put the whole picture together. Then Jules talked last week about the lumbar circle, which we can feel here. If L4 and 5 is very tight, I can look at the gallbladder and the bladder flow, or fourth and fifth depth. So that's on all those different levels that you get it. So we get a lot of information from looking at the body, from the spine. Each vertebra represents a different depth as well. So a depth is really a nice system to put everything together. So are there any questions or comments? Because otherwise Jules is going to explain about the order of creation. Any questions, Michael?
You said something about when a client comes in and has symptoms, and using an SEL flow versus an organ flow. The organ flow is a more manifest level of that depth. Mm-hmm. So you might do a combination of both an SEL flow and a more manifest of the same depth in order to clear those symptoms. You can. I mean, you can also do one flow. Remember what Carlise was talking about? You can do one and then go back to the pulse and see if that resolved it. Mm-hmm. Because the symptom talks about something, but then the underlying cause may be a different thing. I think sometimes people tell me about their right back pain, and automatically I go completely somewhere. Well, it's my right back, right? I'm like, yes. Oh, let me check that too. But that's not really the cause of the project, but they may feel it there. Mm-hmm. So yes, and that's what you will explore. And over your years of practice, that may also change. It's like, sometimes when you start, I see a lot of people working with the organ functions primarily, like you like to do that, right? You work a lot with organ functions. For me, I work a lot with the safety energy location flows first, primarily. I work with those.
Nudging me in the direction I felt of looking at them as well.
Yeah.
So I understand why now. I guess it didn't click before. I understand why. Mm-hmm. That's my great takeaway for today, that it's on a more causal level. And so it's good to approach it from both ways.
Yes, it is. It is. It's like, give the example, if there's a leak in the house and the leak is really, really bad, which do you fix? Sometimes you have to mop up the water a little bit first, otherwise you can't even come in, maybe. And then it's most important to go to the cause and clear close that leak. So that's how this works as well.
Yeah, if someone comes to you and they have pain in their body or they've a physical issue, like address that issue. That's why they're coming to you. And if you don't address that issue, you're not going to keep coming back. So, you know, you might think, oh, well, this really has to do with, you know, this emotional part of their life that they're not really facing, and it might have to do with that. But if you don't address that pain immediately, they won't come back and you won't get to work on that emotional level. And if you open up some emotional stuff before you've dealt with their pain, now they have pain and they're dealing with some past emotions, right? And so I love the text one, safety, energy, location, flows. Like I love that stuff, and I think that it's really those flows or those combinations of holds are really important for understanding how different parts of our body relate to each other and different safety energy locations relate to each other. But sometimes the most efficient way to deal with pain is to work on an organ function level, because that's the manifested level, and that's what they're experiencing.
It repairs. They repair and they nurture, and it is a great part of the self-help as well.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah, and so what happens though is you work with that and it works, but then they have maybe it's a chronic issue, or maybe they have certain habits in their lives, and so they come back next week and they're like, well, it was better, but it didn't go away, or it was better, but it came back. You know, and so that's when you really want to use the safety, energy, location flows, because then you get to what's going on underneath, and you nourish the body so it takes care of itself.
And that's why often it takes about 3 sessions. I see really, really big changes after 3 sessions if they're consecutive. You know, if you come like once a week or something, right? I mean, you
Definitely.
you have that, I think, as well.
did.
So you have to give it a chance. But usually people feel like something, and you know, I'm saying, like you're starting to make it a part of your life,
Yeah.
right?
Trying.
Yeah. And here you are today. So there's something about it that
Absolutely.
makes sense,
Absolutely.
and that is wonderful. So anyway, let's talk about the order of
Okay,
creation.
so the order of creation,
Turn it
well,
around.
just the name of that means that it's the order of things being created, right, and manifested. So so we see this in relation to the zodiac, and so in the first sign in the zodiac is Aries, and Aries relates to the lung flow. Lung flow is the first flow in manifestation in Jin Shin Jitsu also.
That's me, Aries.
I always have to be there first.
Right.
I'm a Taurus, so I come up right behind. So.
And I'm the Gemini.
Oh, perfect.
Right.
So
Talk about the art of creation, right?
yeah, so we can think about the organ flows in this way, and knowing the astrological signs helps us to understand the organ flows better. So, you know, the Aries is the first one to get going. They always have a lot of energy. They're a fire sign. In Jin Shin Jitsu, it's the lung flow, which is air, right? It's second depth air, but there's a fire to it because it's the first one to start. And so lung flow is like that. Lung flow will get things moving, and they have a lot. Aries, we say that Aries is about their phrase is I am. So it has a lot to do with coming into yourself, knowing yourself, and so we can use the lung flow for all of those kinds of things. And if you go deeper into astrology, you can flesh it out even more. It's really fun to think of the organ flows in that way, creating a whole person.
So
right?
again, you put it in a depth, knowing your astrological sign. It's like, oh, you know, that's something for my life, like second depth. Positive, negative. You know, if you're not completely in harmony, it may show up that you get tired at a certain time or wake up. Just more information.
Yeah, and so the second, and so this is also starting at 4 a.m. right? Lung flow starts at 4 to 6, and then at 6, large intestine takes over. So lung comes from the chest out to the thumb and the index finger, and large intestine at 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. will come back across the shoulders and up into the teeth, and then down into the intestines. And so large intestine has to do with Taurus. Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac, and it's I have. And so we see with second depth that we have Aries saying I am and Taurus saying I have. And that's where we get this idea that second depth is about the manifestation of the body. I am a person in my body. And so that's another thing that we can put into the basket of second depth. This sense of having a body, this sense of being manifest. And when we look at the safety energy locks in second depth, we see that they go from 5 to 15, and we see finishing up that cycle, we have 13, 14, and 15. And so we've come through all 3 levels of the body, the spiritual, the mental, and the physical.
As you're explaining this, can you tie it into showing it on the body?
Oh yeah, you show on those. I can't reach
I'd
over.
like starting also explaining, this one,
Oh, that?
this, and maybe
Yeah.
she has to turn over to tie it into this, so that it's not that people can see it on the body.
Okay.
The order of creation on the body.
So,
So we'll start with her.
so what I didn't start with is that there's things percolating before we get to second depth, the manifestation, right? And so that percolating is third depth. And so if we look on the body, we can see this whole cycle in the body, and this is what Alexis is asking me to show you guys. So third depth starts in the sacrum, coccyx sacrum area, and it moves up the spine. In Jin Shin Jitsu, we talk about the energy going up the back and then down the front. So it's moving up. So we have third depth here, and so that's the blueprint. So once we have the blueprint, then we start to manifest, right? We start to breathe, we start to come into ourselves. So we have second depth at this part of the back.
So you see how you can see the depths again on a different level, moving up the spine, and how it is the order of creation, as she was saying, that it starts with lung and large intestine, starting with the blueprint, the third depth, going into second depth, and to on. You see how this is the order of creation.
Mm-hmm.
Took me a while to understand that, truthfully. Okay.
Right, so we have second depth, which third depth is the blueprint, second depth is coming into manifestation, circulating that air, right? It's receiving the air, and then large intestine is letting go. So we're receiving and we're letting go, and that's what life is really about, right? And being in this body, constantly like taking in and expelling.
Exhale and inhale.
Yes.
Right?
Which is another great concept of second depth. That's why second depth is so important. We're exhaling and inhaling.
Mm-hmm.
It's the lung, right? So after second depth, we go into first depth. So another way of saying that is after large intestine flow that ended up here, right? Then we have stomach flow. And stomach flow circles the face, comes out to the acromion, goes down through the abdomen, down to the opposite leg. And some people also say the same side leg. It goes into the C of the abdomen, and then 2 parts separate. One part goes down one leg, one part goes down the other. And so we can really think of stomach. Anyway, that's a little advanced. But so the drawing goes to the opposite leg and to the big toe, the second toe, and the third toe. And stomach is related to Gemini. So we keep moving through the zodiac, right? So we'll go through the whole year like that. So stomach and spleen are up in the neck. So we've sort of gone through the sacrum, the lumbar area, And then now we're up in the cervical spine here. So we're moving up.
So, yeah, so how you can see this in the practice, if somebody has neck projects, you can look at it in that way, on this level, that there is a relationship with first depth in the neck. So that's on the level of order of creation.
Yeah.
Because you can also look at the 11s to 12s. You can look on the safety energy location level, an organ, which organ functions flow through it, or on this level as well. So that is what we're showing now.
Yeah. And one, you know, and then we start to see confirmation of this in other places. Like we start, like there's a knowledge amongst body workers, and I believe like Western medical practitioners, that oftentimes with diabetes there's a lot of neck issues also. And so
diabetes, you're saying it's because
right.
diabetes is related to sugar
and sugar metabolism. So that would be spleen and stomach, right? Spleen also we think of as the pancreas. So the pancreas has a lot to do with diabetes, right?
So when we overuse and we're doing a lot and we're depleted and stressed, the right side of the neck gets tight.
Mm-hmm.
And so diabetes and the neck, you start to see all these relationships.
Okay. So we've gone through Gemini is I communicate. It might also be I think. There's two of them, so it could be both. There's always two twins. Right? And then Cancer relates to the spleen. And so those are the two flows of the first depth. And
Yes, I feel, right?
And Cancer is I feel.
Very emotional.
So and so here we are at the neck, and then so we have blueprint, circulation of energy into manifestation, second depth, right? Then we have first depth, digestion. So we come into being. First thing we do is breathe. Second thing we do is we eat, and we start digesting food. We start digesting like sensory information, our thoughts. So that's digestion is all first depth, and all of those different kinds of digestion. And then once we get the food in our system, we have to circulate that through our body. So from first depth we move into fifth depth, right? And that's so we were down at the toe with stomach, and then spleen flow comes up. The other aspect of first depth comes up into our chest, and from our chest again we have another chest flow, heart. So heart opens the heart and the chest and goes out to our little finger. So we have heart at the top of the head. It's really in the center of the head. And then from the little finger we have small intestine, which comes back across the shoulder and into the side of the head and down into the intestines.
And that's like in the head.
Fifth depth is really in the center of the head.
The center of the head, which is usually hard to reach, right? So that helps also the pineal and pituitary gland. And in the first step of your main center source, that's what you access. It's the deepest part of the head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I love that idea that fifth depth is in the center of the head, because we also see that fifth depth, the heart, is in the center of our rib cage, right? And so there's this aspect that fifth depth is always, especially the heart aspect of it, is always protected. It's in the center, it's in the inside, our core of our body, and wherever you find it, it's going to have protection. The ribs, the skull, it's what we guard and consider most sacred.
So turn over.
Wake up.
Wake up. Thank you so much. All right, so moving along.
So
in the order of creation.
After we circulate, then we have to metabolize, right? Mm-hmm. And so we come down into fourth depth, which we see at the center of the sternum, and then where the ribs meet at the xiphoid process at the bottom of the sternum. And so that's fourth depth.
So 13 flow also helps the fourth depth because of this reason of the order of creation. Does that start to make sense to some of you? Yeah, there we go. Okay.
You said that the fourth depth was, you said it was breathe, eat, circulate, and the fourth depth was what?
Metabolize?
Mm-hmm.
And
So just to go through the astrological thing, fifth depth we have heart, which is Leo, and we have small intestine, which is Virgo. So Leo is I will. It has a lot to do with our willpower. And Virgo is I analyze. And so when we look at the small intestine, that's where we analyze most of our food.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's kind of nitty gritty,
It's-
right?
Yeah, with
heart
the
is-
with the villi, and it's and small intestine is where we decide what we need to keep for our body and what we need to get rid of. It's where basically we absorb like 90% of all of our mineral and nutrients through the small intestine. So that's Virgo. You know, some Virgos sometimes get a bad rap because they're a little anal retentive, but they have a really important job. You know, they're deciding what's useful and what's not, and they're able to pull that stuff out and share it with the rest of our body. So we see fifth depth really having to do with nourishment, circulating everything through our body, but also deciding what's important, right? So fifth depth has to do with deciding our course in life. And it's like why we have to follow our heart. So fourth
but
depth
now
now.
we're fourth
Yeah,
depth.
now we're back to fourth depth.
All right, we have a few more minutes
No.
please, because honestly, now on
It was a
sessions
long
now.
one. So,
In a nutshell,
in a
go
nutshell.
ahead.
So then we go to bladder. Bladder flow starts here and then descends down the back of the body. And bladder is Libra, I balance. So we see with bladder flow that it's sort of like two parallel lines, well, 6, but it is covering both sides down the back of the body. And then kidney is I create, and it relates to Scorpio.
Little gurgle, little fourth depth
Right.
movement.
So that's our fourth depth. And then from fourth depth, kidney. So bladder goes down to the little toe, kidney comes up into the chest. And then we have diaphragm flow in the chest. No. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So we have diaphragm flow in the chest. And I didn't know how we got back to the chest so quickly. You think it's been long. But anyway, so diaphragm flow starts in the chest again and goes out to the middle finger and the ring finger.
To become
Diaphragm.
umbilicus.
To become umbilicus, yeah. So we have Sagittarius.
But
and
But how
Capricorn.
does that show on the body? I want to.
Oh, they're down here, right?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, it doesn't really show in that sense in the order of creation on the body, as it is the spine where it gets the nourishment, the organ functions. So then it goes back into third.
Third depth's on the back, right? So we have sixth
Right.
depth in the front, at the umbilical area, and then at the pubic area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And sixth depth really also is that fire in our core. So we talk about umbilicus having to do with the spine,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And
Is that what
then-
you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And so when you see like a fullness here, you can look at umbilicus. That's how it would show up, or a fullness here, the diaphragm energy. And so in the order of creation, it's, when you see the drawing, you see how it gets the nourishment from the spine, which is another aspect of the sixth depth again.
Yeah.
Right, as it moves up from the third depth.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted that to be really clear today, how it starts from the blueprint, the coccyx, and then moves up. the second depth and the first depth, and then the fifth depth, the fourth depth, and then the sixth depth. How you can see that whole order of creation, that every 2 hours this new organ function comes into being, how you can see that on the body like that.
Yeah, that's lovely. It's true. I mean, it's like, so every day we're going through each of these organ flows, and they're moving us a little bit further along. And so that way they're all tapping into the main central, and the main central is nourishing them and feeding them. And we really think about main central as sixth depth energy. So we can see it with diaphragm and umbilicus located here. But we also know that the whole main central is being fueled by that sixth depth fire. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then it goes back around to third depth. And so we have gallbladder that starts in the head, and then liver that comes up back into the chest.
So that's the story of the order of creation. You all get it?
It's a continuum.
Yeah, it's a continuum.
And so last week we talked about the lumbar circle. So it goes from more manifest below the waist and earth, moving up through the spine to then the thoracics and the astrological signs. And then next week we can discuss the neck, and the planets.
Sure.
Yeah. So stay tuned for more on that depth. And are there any questions?
None from
Comments?
online, no. Just everyone just is very happy that you guys are talking. That's
Great.
mostly it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody, my message is to keep studying and practicing, and it's really important and fun. We love it, right?
Yeah.
Just got a quick question. What are the zodiac signs for gallbladder and the liver?
Oh, so gallbladder is Aquarius, and liver is Pisces.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see you all next month, and maybe Sunday.